Right, good afternoon everyone, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. A job on the Mini today. Now, since the Mini's been on the road, the first couple of weeks were absolutely fine, the car drove fine, it had a knocking noise but I didn't really think anything of it. Now, a few weeks passed and there started to be complaints of an engine light on the dashboard, wasn't going away. Accompanying the engine light, the fuel economy started to go down, and also the car would feel like a little bit sluggish and a little bit more juddery than it was, and that has led us to today. Now, I've already had my scan tool on it, I've already plugged it in, I've already had a look, because obviously I wanted to order the parts ready for this video. So I'm going to plug the scan tool in again, I'm going to show you why the engine light has come on, and I'm going to show you, potentially, hopefully, how we're going to fix it. Alright, scan tool is hiding in here somewhere. We're going to go with the good old top done, which I've been sent out. This is good for just getting sort of generic codes out. You can also look at live data with this thing, which is pretty useful. I've done a full review on this, so if you want to check it out, if I can actually open it, hang on. There you go. If you want to check this thing out, I've done a full review on my channel. I'll link it in the description so you can check it out. But I'm going to go ahead and plug this into the Mini and I'll show you what codes we're running. I can never find the OBD port on this thing. I know it's under here. I can never feel it. Right, so scan tool is in and the ignition is on the on position as well. I'm just going to do a generic OBD2 diagnose, scan for some codes. I'll show you what it comes up with. As I said, I've already done this before, so this is nothing new to me. Right, there you go. It says, hope you can see it on the camera, mil status is on. DTCs, which is the codes on the ECU, is 1. So if we press OK, read codes, there you go. We've got p0420, which is catalyst system efficiency below threshold, bank 1. And then we've got that on 2 counts, I think. Yeah, 2 counts of that. One's pending, one's current, whatever that means. But p0420 is the code. Now, for those of you that own a car, you may have come across this code before. It seems to be like a universal code for the catalytic converter. It seems like whenever the sensors are reading right, but they're reading the wrong amounts, if that makes sense, and the cat is not working properly, that is the code you'll get, p0420. It comes up on most cars. I think it's the same code for pretty much all cars that have this issue. I actually went ahead and did a test on this thing, which I'll show you as well. Where I did a data stream. So I turned the engine on, looked at the live stream on this tool, because this does like live data. I checked it out and I put the 2 sensors on the screen, because you can choose what you want to look at. I put the 2 sensors and their voltage on the screen, and they were reading pretty much the same voltage, which is a good sign and a bad sign. It means that they're actually reading the CO2 in the exhaust. However, when they're reading the same, that's a bad thing. They should be reading different. The first one, I think, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, I know someone will, I think the first sensor, so bank 1, sensor 1, is supposed to read, it's supposed to bounce up and down, so the voltage is supposed to go from like 0.1 volts to 0.9 volts and sort of jump up and down, and it'll be all over the place. Whereas the second sensor, which is the bank 1, sensor 2, which is after the catalytic converter, should read like in the middle. It should be like 0.4 or 0.5 volts continuous. So it'll move a little bit, but it should be in that range. It shouldn't be jumping up and down like the first sensor does. It should be pretty level. And this car doesn't do that. I'll show you in a second. I'll set up live data again and I'll show you bank 1 sensor 1 and bank 1 sensor 2 are both reading pretty much the same, which tells me that the catalytic converter, which is in the middle of the two, is not doing its job. The catalytic converter obviously gets rid of CO2, it's supposed to burn it off or something like that, oxygen in the exhaust, whereas it doesn't seem to be doing it. Now, it could be down to a number of things. This car did have a head gasket not long ago, remember? Did a whole video series on fixing the head gasket on the Mini. It could have been damaged by the water being burnt off, not entirely sure. But that's what we're changing today. We're going to change the catalytic converter, which goes from the exhaust manifold to sort of around this part of the exhaust just under the car here. It's quite a small piece of the exhaust, but it's also got the 2 sensors in it as well, which you need to swap over from the old one to the new one. That's enough talking. I'm going to quickly show you the live data just so it's on record and you can see it for yourselves, and then we'll get to work and we'll get this exhaust or catalytic converter changed out on the Mini. Right, so this is what we're currently looking at. I've got the data stream up and I've got both oxygen sensor, bank 1 sensor 1, bank 1 sensor 2, which is the pre and post catalytic converter sensors. Ignore the voltage that they're on at the minute. The engine's not on, so they're just at a random voltage. But the second one should look like that for most of the time. It should be around 0.4 volts, and the first one is the one that's going to be jumping up and down, so the top one. Let me go ahead and just switch the engine on so you can watch what it does. So we're now getting up to temperature. We've been running for probably about 2 or 3 minutes, and you can see that the voltages are already going crazy. You can see they're pretty much doing exactly the same thing, which is not what you want to see. At the beginning, the second one was hanging at around 4, like 0.4, 0.5, but now it's doing just as much crazy stuff as the first one, which goes to show the catalytic converter is just not doing its job. Now, ignore the state of my shed. I've got parts everywhere. Down here, I'll just quickly show you it, is the exhaust / catalytic converter for the Mini. I haven't actually properly looked at it yet. There she is. As I said, it goes from the manifold right here. This is what bolts onto the engine. It goes down, you've got a little flexi right here. There's a bung there for our first O2 sensor. So bank 1 sensor 1 will go in there. And then goes down. This is obviously the catalytic converter. This is the culprit that I don't think is working on the Mini. And then second sensor right there. So that one reads the oxygen coming in from the engine into the exhaust. The catalytic converter is supposed to burn some of the oxygen off. And then this sensor, which is going to sit after it, should read differently to that one. That's sort of what I was telling you about when we were doing the live data. There you go, that's the piece. I got it off eBay. It's around 100 quid. Looks pretty good to me. Now I'll quickly just show you where it's located on this car in case you're wondering. So this is the engine right here, and on the back of the engine is the exhaust manifold. Now there's a manifold cover on top of it, which I'm going to have to take off, 2 bolts, and that'll come off, and under it is the manifold. If my memory serves me correct, there's a bunch of 10mm bolts or something like that to take it off. Now luckily, something that's going to help me today, I think, is that this exhaust has actually been off very recently, only a couple of months ago. I did the head gasket on this. If you haven't watched any of that series, I recommend you do. It's on my channel as the Mini series. I did a head gasket on this exact engine. And obviously the head had to come off, which means the exhaust manifold had to come off. And also I put a new exhaust on it from the cat back, which also means that those bolts have been undone recently. So providing everything goes well, the bolts should be all nice and easy to take off. I shouldn't have any trouble with rust or corrosion or stubborn bolts or anything like that. Everything should go smoothly, hopefully. I don't want to jinx it. But now that I've just now started the engine to show you the live data, the exhaust is nice and hot, obviously, so I'm gonna have to wait 10 minutes, let it cool down a bit, and then we'll get started and take some of these bolts off. I'm gonna move the coolant reservoir out of the way as well. This bolt right here, it's literally held on by like a 10mm bolt here, so I'll take that and I'll just sort of move it to the side just to give me a bit better access, and then I can fold this heat shield up as well, and get like ultimate access to the bolts for that. I'm gonna use my electric ratchet for this as well, my Sealy one. I'm gonna use that to try it out and see how it does with these manifold bolts. Now I am going to try and film as much as I can of this job, but I am in a small little time crunch. My dad's come around for tea tonight. It's now 4 o'clock. He comes for about 6. So I've got a couple hours to get this done. Should be plenty of time. Like I said, I'm working in the engine bay and working under the car. I'll film what I can, but it's going to be one of those things. I just need to get this job done really. So I'll take you along and show you as much as possible. So first things first, as I said, I'm going to remove this coolant bowl, which is just a 10mm. Don't know where I'm going to put it though. So I just removed the overflow pipe from the coolant reservoir. It comes around. Oh, I believe some coolant. That's not good. So I've got some more, I can top that up. I just removed the hose from the other end. That should now allow me to bend this up a little. Or should I take that off? Should I take it off? No, I'm just going to bend out of the way for now. It's just a heat shield that protects the power steering fluid and the coolant as well. There you go. Plenty of access. Right, 2 13s I think, if I remember right. Right there and there. Take them off next. Right, there you have it. It's the first piece out. Heat shield, 2 bolts. Easy peasy. Right, now we can see the manifold just about, and I think they are 10mm bolts. I'll try and get the camera in there so you can have a look. What do you reckon? 10mm? I reckon so. I'm going to go ahead and take all them off, all these bolts right here. I think there's about 8 of them. Oh, bleeding neck. This feels like deja vu. I feel like I've done this not long ago. There's all the bolts. I think there's, how was there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I was right. 8 bolts there. And now the exhaust is free from the head. The only thing holding it in is the oxygen sensor wiring, which I should be able to get to from here. This is one of the sensors plugged in just here, just to the left of the battery. So I'll undo that whilst I remember. I need 2 hands. There's one. The other one's plugged under the car somewhere, so I'll have to find that when we're underneath. I think that's everything in the engine bay that I need to do finished. Right, so now that we've got the manifold loose from the engine, obviously we need to get to the other bolts that hold it to the rest of the exhaust, which is underneath the car. So what I was thinking is I'm going to jack up the driver's side. I'm going to jack up at the back and at the front, put it on axle stands, get it fairly high in the air so that I can access it through the side instead of going through the front, just because I feel like that's probably the easiest way to do it, because the exhaust, the bolts are quite far back, so if I jack the front up, then I'll need to jack up pretty high even just to get to them. So we're going to go in from right here. Right, so all jacked up. Got the jack here just in case for the axle stands. Axle stand there. Axle stand at the back. We should have plenty of room now here. You can see big old gap to be able to get in there. I'm only a small boy. I think it's a 15 and a 17mm. The bolt side is 17mm, and then the nut side is a 15mm deep well socket. So I'm going to use a combination of these two. Get under there, and we'll take these bolts off. I guess I should just show you quickly what we are working with. So this is the brand new exhaust that I put on. Right here you can see it goes from the cat all the way back, nice and shiny. It's only a couple of months old, and those bolts there are brand new. So I've got a nut one side, a bolt the other, 17 this side, 15 that side. 2 of them, take them off. And I've just got to unplug the O2 sensor, which looks like it's routed over there somewhere. And this whole pipe should just pull out. That's the theory. Well, there you go, it's already fallen down. I need to know where that O2 wire goes though. I might just be able to take the O2 sensor out of this under here. That might be easier. Right, so let me just update you. As you can see, this is the cat right here. This is the pipe we just taken off. Issue is the O2 sensor, which is on the post cat right here. The wiring goes up and then goes behind this heat shield here, which is a pain. So I think I'm gonna have to take this heat shield off. It looks like it's just held on by these 10mm, and as long as they play ball, that shouldn't be too bad. I should hopefully just have to take that one off, and then I might be able to just bend this away and get to the plug. We'll see how we go. I'll use an impact for this, I think. Bring out the D-Walt for this, see if I can take off this little... Oh, there we go. Where's the wiring go to then? Does it go in the car? It goes up there somewhere. So I don't know if you'll be able to see this. If you look for this reference, there's the wire off the sensor. It goes up, and then around here somewhere, if I can show you, it sits up there. Hopefully you can see that right. That's the plug right there in the middle of the screen. So I've got to undo that somehow and pull it out. Right, so I'm still under the car. I was struggling with that wire for the O2 sensor. It's in a really awkward place where I can't really get to right now. So what I've done instead is I've used my O2 sensor socket, and I've actually managed to break the sensor loose whilst the exhaust is still under here, if you can see. So I'm going to literally twist it out. I know that I'm twisting the wire up right now, but that should be fine. I'll straighten that out once I put it back in. But once I've twisted it enough, there you go. There's the O2 sensor. The post cap, so the after the cap one. I'm literally going to shove that up there for right now. And then when I can put that back in once the new exhaust is back in. But now, if that's out, I should be able to just wriggle this exhaust down and out here. I'm going to need 2 hands for this though, so I apologise if the angles are a bit rubbish. I can't tell if I need to go up or down. I might need to take it up actually, saying that. So I just took the coil pack plug off, and I'm also going to take out these 2 leads just so they're out of the way. I need as much clearance as possible. So I'm going to try another tactic of taking the power steering reservoir out of the way. Bloody camera. See if that makes a difference. I'm also going to take this coil pack off, I think, as well, because it's in the way. It's not clear in this bit here, it seems. When I pull it up, it hits this. It's only 4 bolts, so I might as well take that off as well. Right, let's try now. The heat shield's in the way, that's the problem. So I probably made the mistake of not actually doing any research before doing this, which is never a good thing to do. You should always do some research. I don't actually know how this thing comes out. Oh my goodness. I've been wrestling with this thing for like the past 10 minutes and I've got it this far. That's what we're looking like. I think one more yank and that'll be out. I don't know if it's supposed to come out this way, but it is. I don't care. Ah, yes, there she is. The prize. Right, so here's just a quick little side by side of both of the manifolds. I apologise, it's really sunny, so you might not be able to see too much. Obviously the old one against the new one. This is the cat. I'm hoping that this one's going to go in a lot easier than this one came out, because the cat is actually a lot thinner on this one. You can see the size of this, the width of it. This one's longer, but it's not as thick. And it also doesn't have this bit here. This like sticks out as well. This bit's just a straight piece of pipe. And then the flexi looks a little bit nicer as well. So that's the new one. That's the old one. Now I know a lot of you are probably going to want to see down in there. So I'm going to give you, I'll shine a torch down in the cat and see if we can actually see any visible breakdown of the cat. Now it looks okay to the naked eye, so it does make you wonder what has gone wrong with it. Maybe it's inside, maybe it's the other side, I'm not sure. Maybe I should cut this open. If you want to see me cut this open for a video and check what's inside it, let me know and I'll cut it open and we'll have a look what's inside the cat. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and get this one in. I've bought a new gasket for it. This is for the where the top bit meets the engine. All I've got to do is switch over this O2 sensor right here onto this one. It's going to plug into the pre-cat, and then the as you know, the post-cat is already still on the car, so we ain't got to worry about that right now. Now I know someone's going to ask if I don't tell you, but this is the O2 sensor that I use. It's a Blue Point one, so it is a pretty decent one, same as Snap-on. It's 22mm or 7/8 of an inch chrome moly is what it looks like. It's got a little bit in there for a 3/8 ratchet, which is really nice. It just says oxygen wrench on that side. But this is what I use. I've never ever rounded an O2 sensor off with this. This has taken out every O2 sensor that I've ever removed, and some of them have been really tough and really tight and really corroded. But this has never failed me, so I do highly rate this. Let's see if we can keep that 100 score going and remove this one. Yes, there we go. Still didn't fail me. That one was tight as well. Now, whilst I got them out, I am just giving the O2 sensors just a once over, just looking them over, checking the wiring and stuff like that. Now the insulation has been worn through a little bit on this one, but the wires are all intact. There's nothing wrong with the wires whatsoever. I've checked them all the way around. No slits in them, anything like that. The connector looks good as well, so I'm happy to put that back on. Just giving that a little snug up. That's now safely in there. So this thing is ready to go back in where the old one came out. I'm gonna have to try and route it down like I did the old one when I took it out, but hopefully this one will go in easy. Like I said, it's not quite as chunky as the old one, so should have a lot more luck. All right, here we go. Wish me luck. Look at that, like a glove. Easy peasy, that's it. That's what I'm talking about. I replaced this gasket when I did the head gasket, so I'm going to leave the gasket for the exhaust on because there's not really any point in changing it. It wasn't leaking, so we'll leave it on there. Right, time to get some bolts in this thing and start buttoning it up. Right, so this is where we're at. The new exhaust is in place, all nice and shiny. Looks good. I've put in all the bolts. I just haven't tightened them right down yet. These ones are the ones that are holding it in, and then I've sort of hand tight these ones all in, just literally screwed them in by hand, and I've left them for now until I've tightened up the other end, or I've got the other end situated. So that's the next thing to do, and then I need to just route this, put the other sensor in, and just button up a few little bits and pieces in here that we took off, like the coolant reservoir and stuff like that. So now this should just bolt up to that with any luck, and then we should be good. I'm going to use the old gasket. I say old, pretty much brand new, because as I said, I changed this exhaust. This thing, I've just thought, this thing's going to have a new exhaust all the way from the engine back. And then I've just got to put that sensor in as well, which goes on this side. So I'll do that first. I'll just sat up there, put that sensor in, and then we can bolt this up to her, like so. Just going to give this one a little nip up as well. Ain't got to be tight. There we go. Right, that's the sensor in. I forgot I just need to sort this heat shield out, don't I? Put that back. You don't want that rattling about. Right, that is us done underneath the car. I've got the 2 bolts back in. As you can see, the exhaust O2 sensor bank 2 is in. I've wired it all up where it should be. I've put the heat shield back on. This nut went back on, and that is all now secure. So the underneath the car is literally finished, and that is our brand new shiny cat. Right, let's go button up in the engine bay. Alright, there she is. She's all tightened down, up the top, down the bottom. I just need to route my O2 sensor, plug this back in, and then just put together all my bits that I took off, like the spark plug thingamajiggy, and just tidy everything up. Right, so I've got everything else buttoned up. Power steering fluid reservoir thing is now bolted back up. The coolant reservoir is bolted back up. Heat shield on, heat shield bent back. The coil pack's back on with the HT leads and stuff. So we are ready to fire this up and see if we fix the issue. Alright, it's still recording. If you just point it at me. My dad's on the camera now, so what we're going to do is stick the ABD scanner back on like we did at the beginning of the video, and just check. I'll get the live data back up, I'll clear the codes, get the live data back up, and see OBD port. Do you find your Mule Mini's got OBD ports hard to reach? It's sort of in a really strange place. I'm just gonna, like I said, I'll clear the code first and just make sure that doesn't come back as well. I haven't started up yet. This will be the first start up. Can you see me all right? This will be the first start up since the exhaust has gone on. Right, so the code is still obviously still on, the engine light's still on. I'm going to go ahead and erase codes. It says that it's emission related. Are you sure? Yep. So that's now gone. Right, ready to start. It's a little bit noisy, so. Going to keep an eye out for an engine light, obviously, to see if that comes back on. But whilst we're waiting for that, and let's wait for it to warm up, I'm just going to data stream it, select the O2 sensors again, and just see what they're doing. It's hard to film the screen, so if you can try. Can you see it alright?
Yep.
See the voltages?
Yeah.
Have to let the engine warm up a minute first before it. Yeah, right, so the engine temperature is pretty much bang on the middle, so it's been running for 3 or 4 minutes now. And before, I'll put a clip in the video of what it was like before, but this is now the readings that we're getting. The camera, hang on, it's awkward to film. So the first sensor is the top one, and it's bouncing around like it was before, which it should do. That's how the sensor should be reading. And the second one is now reading at about 0.7 volts, 0.8 volts, steadily though. It's a steady 0.7 volts, which is exactly what we should be seeing. This shouldn't be bouncing around like this one is, like it was before. It's now steady, and it looks to me like we've fixed the issue. As I said, the engine is now up to operating temperature, so there's no problem with that. It's staying as it should. Around about 8 volts, 0.8 sorry, which is perfect. Oh, well happy with that. That is perfect. That is exactly what I was hoping was going to happen. So we're still running. It's probably been about 5 minutes now, 6 minutes since we turned the engine over, and we're still running at about 0.7. It's between 0.7 and 0.8 volts, which is spot on. The first one's still jumping around as it should. The car sounds really good. It's idling perfectly. Still no engine light. So I would call this one fixed, 100%. That was definitely the issue. Right, well I think with that, that's pretty conclusive that the Mini is fixed. I am so happy that the figures back up the fix. I honestly am. The engine light is gone. The figures speak for themselves. You've seen the voltages before and you saw the voltages after, completely different and absolutely perfect. I'm very happy. It wasn't too bad of a job either. It was pretty easy. The hardest bit was probably getting the exhaust out of the engine bay. You saw I was really struggling with that, but apart from that, pretty straightforward. All the bolts went fine. Like I said, I had them out not long ago anyway, so I knew they weren't going to be too much of a hassle. So that is all I've got for you. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something. If you yourself have the p0420 code, look at your catalytic converter. There's a high chance that something like that might be the issue. If you want to get yourself one of those scan tools, it's a Topden scan tool. I'll link it down in the description if I remember. It's really good for not just reading codes but also looking at live data. Sometimes live data can really help you to diagnose the problem before you go ahead and just start changing parts out, which is what I wanted to do. So I knew that my sensors were reading wrong, but they were reading, so I knew that there was a problem somewhere else. Catalytic converter turned out to be the problem, and it's now swapped out and fixed. So I'm very happy with that. Thank you to my dad for filming a few last bits. He's indoors at the minute, but he filmed a few of the last clips that you would have seen, so I appreciate it. Thank you. And that's all I got. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. It helps me out a lot. I've got a bit more work on this Mini to come soon, some suspension stuff, and also the brakes need some love and attention because they're a bit squeaky at the minute. The engine light was kind of the biggest issue. This thing's got its MOT this month. It runs out at the end of this month. I think it's on the 24th or something. So look forward to that. Hopefully there won't be too many things that this fails on. Hopefully it'll pass. Anyway, that's enough rambling. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe for future content. Got lots of things coming. And I will see you guys in the next one.